Chapter 508, Avatar of Sword Chi. This chapter is updated by novels.pl. Zhang Yuochen's appearance created quite a stir in the Colosseum of the Martial Market. After all, Zhang Yuochen was the 16th master on the Heaven Board and held the title of the successor of Buddha. Instead of Huang Yanchen, people were now anticipating his fight with Huang Shenyi. Zhang Yuochen unexpectedly, he really came back. Ao Xianyun looked at Huang Yanchen, who was not far away, feeling complicated and worried. Actually, Zhang Yuochen's opponent, Huang Shenyi, ranked first on the Heaven Board. Based on the strength that he had just displayed, Huang Shenyi seemed almost invincible, like an unbeatable warlord. Moreover, according to legend, nobody had walked off the Colosseum alive after fighting Huang Shenyi except for Xunlong. However, could Zhang Yuochen's strength even be compared to Xunlong's? Ao Xianyun was very certain about Zhang Yuochen's strength. Although he was indeed very strong, he was still too young. At least for now, he was not comparable with superiors like Xunlong and Huang Shenyi. Seeing Zhang Yuochen appear, Orange Star Emissary sneered and said, had Zhang Yuochen hidden and practiced for a few years, he might have caught up with Yellow God Emissary. I didn't expect that he would be so stupid as to come back in advance. After today, there won't be any more Buddha Emperor's descendant. Having heard Zhang Yuochen's words, Huang Yanchen was naturally very touched. However, what Orange Star Emissary said made sense. It was not the right time for Zhang Yuochen to come back. If he died under Huang Shenyi's sword because of her, she would never be able to forgive herself. Huang Yanchen quickly walked down from the spectator stand and stopped Zhang Yuochen, who was about to appear in the Colosseum. With her beautiful royal blue eyes staring into his, she shook her head. Zhang Yuochen said with a smile, "Senior sister apprentice, it is just Huang Shenyi, there is nothing to worry about. This trouble I caused, let me deal with it myself. As for cultivation, you're a little bit more profound than me. In the future, you can avenge me." There was a firm and resolute look in Huang Yanchen's eyes. As always, Huang Yanchen was very arrogant and unyielding, pressing forward with an indomitable will. She felt that she alone should answer for what she did. She did not want to involve Zhang Yuochen. Zhang Yuochen reached out and grasped Huang Yanchen's wrist, saying, "We have a long future ahead. If whenever there is trouble you always go and solve it yourself, then of what use am I? You are my fiancé. It is my duty to stand in front of you and protect you from the storm, right?" Huang Yanchen's white teeth tightly bit her lips as tears sparkled in her eyes before teardrops finally slipped down her face. Juan Muxingling heard Zhang Yuochen and Huang Yanchen's words from afar. Seeing their closeness, she felt somewhat envious and distressed. Huang Shenyi was smiling smugly on top of the heavenly ring. It didn't matter how despicable his methods were, he had achieved his goal and forced Zhang Yuochen out. He had previously been defeated by Di Yi when he ran for the position of Young Master of the Black Market Excellence Hall. However, he had not been convinced. He had always thought that he was more outstanding than Di Yi. Di Yi only became the young master because he had a stronger family background. When it came to talent, he believed that he was superior to Di Yi. Di Yi had not only been defeated by Zhang Yuochen, he had even lost the demon's heart, bringing disgrace to the Black Market Excellence Hall. By his estimation, if he could defeat Zhang Yuochen, or even kill him, then the high-level leaders of the Black Market Excellence Hall would certainly reconsider and he would be appointed as young master. Zhang Yuochen, today is the day of your death. After he obtained Xuanwu heritage, the first person Huang Shenyi had wanted to deal with was Di Yi. However, since Zhang Yuochen had appeared, then he would kill Zhang Yuochen first. With such an achievement, would anyone refuse to obey his orders when he returned to the Black Market Excellence Hall? Huang Yanchen retreated. Zhang Yuochen ascended the heavenly ring with firm and steady steps until he stood in front of Huang Shenyi, with one hand holding a sword and the other behind his back. Huang Shenyi spoke, "Zhang Yuochen, you're too impulsive. You will ruin your future for a woman. With your talent, you had great potential to become a saint as long as you did not encounter me. Why do you have to do such a stupid thing?" Zhang Yuochen said with a smile, "You have been waiting for me. How could I disappoint you?" Coldness entered Huang Shenyi's eyes as he said, "Do you still think you can leave the Colosseum alive today? Don't you think I can chop your head off before you can even give in?" Zhang Yuochen shook his head and said, Give in? Why should I give in? Huang Shengyi had thought that Zhang Yuochen would immediately give in awfully after stepping onto the Colosseum. This way, he could have saved his life even if he lost face. However, he never thought that Zhang Yuochen would be so arrogant as to really want to fight with him. Haha. Zhang Yuochen, do you think that by defeating Yi you are now invincible amid your contemporaries? I have the inheritance of the ancient mythical beast Xuanwu. If you fight with me, you'd be like an egg trying to crush a stone. It's just Xuanwu heritage, not the real mythical beast Xuanwu itself. Even the strongest person in the world may eventually taste defeat, not to mention you are not. Zhang Yuochen said indifferently. Humphrey, against you, I am more than enough. Huang Shengyi wanted to stop this meaningless debate with Zhang Yuochen. In his eyes, the moment that Zhang Yuochen stepped onto the heavenly ring he was already a dead man. Zhang Yuochen, your sword technique cultivation is not that good, right? Then I'll defeat you with my sword technique. Let me show you who the real master is. Clash. Huang Shengyi moved his finger and the holy sword in his hand turned into a black light, flying out toward Zhang Yuochen's heart. Zhang Yuochen felt a little surprised with Huang Shengyi's sword defending technique. He did not expect that Huang Shengyi's sword technique was so profound that he had realized heart integrated into sword. However, Huang Shengyi was only at the initial stage, but Zhang Yuochen was already at the intermediate stage. Zhang Yuochen combined two fingers to form a sword skill and pointed forward. With a clash, the Abyss Ancient Sword flew out of the sheath. It was also a sword defending technique move. Glang, glang. The two holy swords quickly clashed over the Colosseum. Sword chi flew out of the blade, turning into thousands of sword shadows, passing around the two people, colliding and attacking each other. Zhang Yuochen stood still like a god of swordsmanship. With the heart of the sword he controlled sword chi, turning it into a deluge of sword chi, initiating an active attack against Huang Shengyi. That blast of sword chi was formed from the convergence of hundreds of sword shadows, threatening to devour Huang Shengyi. His sword technique is surprisingly powerful. Realizing that Zhang Yuochen's sword technique realm was above his, Huang Shengyi knew that he could not defeat Zhang Yuochen with only the power of sword technique. Break. He suddenly took a step forward, grasped the hilt, mobilized genuine chi throughout his entire body, and swung the sword toward the deluge of sword chi that was moving past. With a boom, the torrent of sword chi dissipated with just one stroke of Huang Shengyi's sword. Glang. However, the Abyss Ancient Sword flew out from behind the flow of sword chi and struck towards Huang Shengyi's globula. Huang Shengyi's reaction was extremely fast. He immediately swung his sword and hit the body of the Abyss Ancient Sword, deflecting the sword technique. Swoosh. The Abyss Ancient Sword spun in the air, curving, and then moving behind Huang Shengyi before it stabbed toward his back. In a flash, the sword had penetrated Huang Shengyi's celestial body. She yelled. Quickly turning around, Huang Shengyi held his sword with both hands and once again was on the defensive. With straight arms, he continuously injected genuine chi into the sword blade, stimulating the power of the holy sword before stabbing out. The edges of the two swords collided with each other. Tremendous power passed from Huang Shengyi's arms to his legs and then to the ground. Under the impact of that power, a loud crash shook the whole heavenly ring. Without the protection of the inscription of Array, the Colosseum would have probably been torn apart. Just as Huang Shengyi thought that he had warded off the Abyss Ancient Sword, from both sides of its blade flew out two sword chi illusory images, aiming at Huang Shengyi's eyes. How is it possible? Huang Shengyi's face changed. At the critical moment, all power in his body was mobilized. A whirlwind surged up from his feet and he quickly withdrew his sword and retreated. Although the two currents of sword chi did not hit his eyes, one of them had flown by his temple, cutting the skin and leaving a half-inch long wound. Huang Shengyi retreated to the edge of the heavenly ring before stopping. He stared at Zhang Yuochen across him with amazement. Avatar of Sword Chi, you've reached the intermediate stage of heart integrated into sword. Swoosh. The two avatars of Sword Chi flew back and reunited with the Abyss Ancient Sword. Zhang Yuochen reached his hand out and grasped the hilt of the Abyss Ancient Sword. He sighed lightly. Such a pity, so close. That blow just now, it was indeed such a pity. Had Huang Shengyi's reaction been slightly slower, the two avatars of Sword Chi could have penetrated his head. The most important sign of the initial stage of heart integrated into sword was to condense the heart of the sword and display the sword defending technique. A flying sword could kill people tens of miles away. The most important sign of the intermediate stage was to display the avatar of Sword Chi. When the cultivation of a warrior reaches a certain level, he would be able to condense the avatar, which could help him carry out tasks. So with the sword, upon reaching the intermediate stage of the heart integrated into sword, warriors could make the sword condense into the avatar of Sword Chi. The avatar of Sword Chi was condensed from 99 currents of Sword Chi. Although its bursts of power were not as good as that of the sword itself, it was surprisingly effective, making it difficult to guard against. Boom! The battle in the heavenly ring caused an uproar in the audience. Their warriors who were present were all shocked, jaws dropping. They never thought that Zhang Yuochen was so powerful.